All right, we're live. What's up, party people? It's your host, Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Thanks to our sponsors, Raz Rocket, your fundraise on autopilot. Today, I'm joined by Leila. Leila, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sunny. How are you doing?
I am excited. I'm excited about this conversation. It's something that I think a lot of people talk about, but know probably very little about, which is governance and around the topic of AI. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be talking with you today. So Leila, maybe tell people just a little bit about the company and the work that you're doing, maybe like a sentence or two, and then happy to dive into kind of your backstory, and then we'll obviously come back to your company later on in the interview.
Sounds great, Sunny. Well, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. I really enjoy your podcast and your discussions with guests. So happy to be here. Reliance AI is a privacy, AI governance, and cybersecurity platform. We started AI native because we saw what was happening in the world with AI, and we really needed to have a better way of governing information that's being processed, understanding what's there, securing it, and making sure that generally companies can get their arms wrapped around everything that is happening at this pivotal moment in technology.
Fascinating, fascinating. So we'll get into that, everyone, in a few minutes, and then let's start with your backstory, Leila. So you started your career in big law at Allen and Overy. What drew you to that world initially? And yeah, tell us a little bit about those early days.
Sure. Yes, really early days, Sunny. So yes, it's now A&O Sherman. That is where I started my career. I saw that the writing on the wall was there for technology, and that one of the ways in which I could use my law degree in order to really kind of make a difference in the things that I thought were really fascinating, like privacy, intellectual property, technology in general, was by practicing law, and so that's how I got started. That was back many moons ago, Sunny, and I worked out of the Paris office. I've always had sort of an international career. And back then, privacy was actually not even a function of the legal department. We had an IP litigation team, but it was so early that we didn't really know where to put it. But the IP lawyers, and I was the sort of California lawyer working in Europe, so they said, okay, you know about tech, so we're going to throw some of this at you, which is basically was my foray into data privacy.
That's pretty wild. And so what was the moment you realized that privacy and data protection were going to be, defining themes for your career?
Well, I think we've been going through this technology eating the world transition for some time. So it was pretty clear that in addition to this being sort of the next frontier in the 2000s, one of the most important issues that needs to be considered is how are we going to protect people's information? And the reason I was so interested in what was happening in Europe is because I saw that when regulations would be adopted out of the European Union, what would often happen is it had this, what we call an extraterritorial effect, meaning it doesn't just stay within the EU. The laws would actually apply well outside. It would touch Silicon Valley. It would touch the rest of the world if you wanted to do business with Europe. And it was just really fascinating that Europe was taking such a position. They tend to be much more consumer focused in the European Union. Consumer protection is a key priority. Where here in the US, we're often really focused on business development, business growth. So we tend to regulate less in some of these areas. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I got started.
Interesting. Very interesting. So when you look back, what were one of the two pivotal decisions that most changed the trajectory of your career?
I think getting into tech in the first place, honey, there was just so much going on. So I think
Mm.
the career decisions that I made to start representing tech companies as a lawyer started to highlight some of the general underlying operational and strategic challenges that businesses faced. It wasn't just about practicing law or interpreting regulation, and I'm a little allergic, for example, to the word compliance. This was about building trust at organizations. It actually mattered to how the business could grow. I also also saw things like security incidents, really embarrassing companies. I always think about sort of these New York Times tests where I saw that with several clients, and it was really illuminating as far as the impact that could have on a business. And having lived through that and having had to manage that as part of several incident response teams, this really was these were clarifying moments for me on the impact data protection and governance can have on companies.
And was there a specific case, or client, or incident that led you in this direction?
I wouldn't be able to highlight that directly, Sunny, but but
Broad strokes?
yes, broad strokes. I mean, I think one of the most surprising things is that 70% of security incidents don't even necessarily happen because of being within a company. It happens because of an external vendor that was accessing information that the company didn't know about. This is one of the things that Reliance AI helps with. It's one of the key focus areas is just really understanding what's going on in our environment. And I think for all the security incidents that I managed, it was often an issue of we didn't exactly know how this tech or AI was being deployed or how it was accessing data. And I think this is kind of one of the bigger challenges that companies really need to address if we're going to stay ahead of this and have the proper solutions that are in place.
Interesting. And maybe before we switch gears, if you could, go back to your first year associate days, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Investing in tech is the right career path. Really
Ooh, I
getting
like
to
that.
know, really, Sunny, because it's sort of surprising and a little concerning given what we're seeing in AI right now, how little technology is taught in school today. And I think especially if you are down a path of becoming a lawyer, this is not exactly like lawyers are not getting trained in programming, for example, even basic classes. Now we have things like CS50 and educational systems, but that's just not something that's there. So I actually, in one role, took a demotion in order to work more closely with engineers to really understand tech. And even though it set me back a little bit because it was not the title that I necessarily wanted to start with, it actually propelled me, just catapulted me forward because I was working with the engineers. And that was one of the best career decisions that I made.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's start talking about autonomous vehicles. I'm really interested in
Yeah.
privacy and the birth of Reliant. So, as the first cybersecurity and privacy lawyer for GM's autonomous vehicles, what did day one look like for you?
Overwhelming. So joining GM Cruise was just incredible because they were trying to make the car drive itself, of course. But I think what was so interesting, Sunny, is that there were just collection points everywhere. It was new technology. It was a new entry point with respect to the use of machine learning technology. And so it just really took a lot of both technology understanding and just navigating this behemoth of an organization to understand who is doing what. And as a cybersecurity and privacy lawyer there, it was so important that I understood the data collection points on the vehicle. Where was the vehicle processing and collecting information? Not just specific to that client, but in general, for all autonomous vehicles, there's just an incredible amount of information that's collected there. So really understanding how information was being collected from where, what it looked like, was just such a key priority.
You mentioned Cruise. Was Cruise an acquisition?
It was exactly.
Do
So
you know who the name of the founder was of Cruise? Do you
yes,
remember?
Kyle Vaught. Yeah, that's right.
And were there a couple of guys? Sorry, was there an Indian guy there as well?
I'm sure there were a few,
I'm
Sunny,
trying to remember his
probably.
name because I had met this gentleman and I thought he was, oh my goodness, I should probably just Google it, Surreal or something like that. And I remember him, I think he recently was the one who sold Grok, right? Groq to NVIDIA.
Oh,
Anyways, I don't want to get
interesting.
off on a
Okay.
tangent. I think it's the
No
same
worries.
guy. I
Yeah,
could be
it
wrong,
could
but
be.
because I
It could
met him
be.
once or twice way back in the day. And so,
Cool.
anyway, so so what were some of the most surprising, non-obvious, like kind of data collection points in a modern vehicle?
Ah. Well, something I really didn't consider as I was joining, but realized quickly that it was really important was the microphone on these autonomous vehicles. You obviously the cameras are pretty obvious, right? You need to be able to see around you. I needed to learn about LiDAR and radar sensors, of course, but the microphone is also on the vehicle. So it is actually indeed collecting sound. That's true of most autonomous vehicles. Why? Now, if you think about it, sometimes you will hear sirens for first responder vehicles that you won't necessarily see, but you need to be able to pull out of the way. So that was sort of non-obvious, but I thought was a really, really interesting part, and it's really for safety, and the vehicles need this, but it was another really interesting issue to tackle as a lawyer there, and making sure that we were doing the right things and that it was all in compliance with what the requirements were.
And how did working on these autonomous vehicles change your understanding of AI risk and governance?
Yeah, another great question, Sunny. I mean, there often were questions of safety, right? That often that is a longstanding debate of, do we need this information for safety? Can we limit it for privacy? How are we responsibly accessing and processing this information? Because you can imagine, and again, not just of this client, but of any client, a large vehicle that is proceeding down a roadway, say in San Francisco, we will be collecting all types of information, sounds. We're going to see who folks are with. There are a lot of really important privacy implications, and at the same time, the vehicle needs this information in order to be able to autonomously drive. Does the vehicle know that it's in a school zone, for example? It's not just necessarily an indicator of signs. It might be an indicator of the age of individuals who might be passing or in that area. So a lot of really important questions, and a lot of really important decisions being made as it relates to not only the privacy implications, but also the safety implications.
And at what point did you say there's no good tech for this problem and I need to build it?
Well, that was through my entire career, Sunny. And I think that for me, seeing how quickly technology was being developed with various companies, I was also at Workday. I joined Adaptive Insights. I went to Cruise. I worked with healthcare tech companies, hundreds of clients in private practice. There was no good tech to manage these types of programs. And often the work of the legal team, even though we're building cars driving themselves, we're building healthcare data maps, we're building AI into HRM systems. I mean, these are really huge developments, moving the needle from 0 to 1 on technology. And here are a lot of legal and security teams that are kind of coming with these manual workflows, interviewing engineers about, hey, what are you guys doing? It just felt so obsolete. I mean, it was ridiculous. How on earth can you keep up with the developments in AI, the explosion of AI this moment, without really having AI yourself to keep pace with what these companies are building? I mean, I just felt like we were living in the Stone Age, and at the same time, we're building some of the most modern technology the world has ever seen. So for me, I couldn't reconcile this. It was kind of like, what do we do to reconcile this? And the only solution was to use AI in order to understand AI, to embed in these systems. And I think as companies, especially at some of these innovation labs now, are just building new systems, we as a cybersecurity industry, we as a privacy and AI governance industry, we must figure out how we can embed in these workflows. Because if there's one thing that's become clear, and I actually just posted a blog on this yesterday, is that if we are not keeping pace with innovation, that can actually put the entire program of governance at risk in these companies. And that is not a place that I think any professional in security, privacy, or AI governance wants to be.
Gotcha. So in the early days of Reliance, what assumptions did you get wrong about how companies manage privacy and AI governance?
Uh, yes, a great question, Sunny. So I think it has been a bit surprising how hard it can be to get folks to adopt AI technology and to kind of get out of their old ways and adopt what is new. That has been both, I think, a challenge and an opportunity to kind of educate the market that we shouldn't fear AI, we should embrace it and use it in the way that we're thinking about how we build our programs. There's sort of a lack of trust, I think, in using AI, which I find really interesting because a lot of the ways that a lot of these problems have been solved to date, Sunny, are interviewing people and filling out forms and surveys the manual way, as opposed to asking questions directly to the tech. So I found that explaining, which is a principle of AI governance anyway, being really able to explain how the technology operates, have very clear documentation on how decisions are being made, how an AI solution like Reliance AI can really illuminate what it is that you're doing is operating is just so critical for folks across the board.
Crazy. So you've gone through multiple funding rounds. What's been the hardest part of building a company in such a, I don't know, like fast evolving regulatory and tech landscape?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head, Sunny. Not only do we have tech evolving really quickly, but we also have the laws changing really quickly. And there are just a lot of things that are surprising. I mean, we had, for example, this moratorium on state laws in AI, which I thought was really surprising because at the very moment that, the CEO of Microsoft AI is talking about how we're going to displace all jobs, white collar jobs in the next 12 to 18 months. I don't know if you saw that this week, Sunny. It was pretty surprising and very ambitious. It does sort of make you shrug, doesn't it? When we have that, to not be thinking about how we as a society are going to sort of brace for that impact, and to not have this be the key talking point of our representatives is pretty surprising, because we do need to prepare for this. We need to be upskilling our workforce. We need to be thinking about if these claims are true, what are we going to do to prepare ourselves? Are we ready for this? Is our education system ready? Are we teaching kids in school the right things? Are we teaching college students the right things? And I mean, as I was just saying, like, the law school education is totally broken, in my opinion. We do not have the right technology acumen in the legal profession, and yet if this is true, we're 12 to 18. I mean, I think that's pretty ambitious, of course, but 12 to 18 months of displacing white collar jobs. I mean, that is a really significant claim, and to not have AI be the key talking point of how and what that means for our country here in the US, but really globally what that means, I think is really something we need to start paying attention to. Not to mention, of course, all the guardrails, the controls we need to put in place to understand that AI is even being used, how it's used, what data it's accessing. These are really important, almost existential questions, Sunny, that I think really we need to be bringing to the surface and discussing today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is one of the reasons I'm trying to do the podcast, my little part in the corner of the world here. So when you say AI governance, I mean, this is a word that I hear quite a bit. What does it actually mean in concrete day-to-day terms for companies using AI?
Yeah, good question. I mean, this is really talking about how any organization is going to use controls, guardrails, technology, processes, and if there is a law around it, how we're going to apply those types of things to help stakeholders that are within the organization really oversee the use of AI within an organization. So that I think is the right way to think about it. It's putting in these guardrails, and what is an organization's approach to AI adoption broadly. I think that's super, super important to consider.
And if a CEO asked you, what are the first 3 questions they should ask about AI in their company, what would you say those should be?
What AI systems do we have in our environment? What are we building and what are we procuring? Number one. Number two, what data is that AI relying on in order to make any decisions? How are we processing that information? And number three, how is that information flowing? Because it's not necessarily just a single model that might be deployed in your environment. If you have procured, for example, a third-party model, which I think the vast, unless you are one of these companies, building frontier models, then you're adopting them. So what does that actually look like? How is data flowing through that system? And do you have the right controls? Like, who is actually overseeing this within your organization? There are a lot of other questions I have, Sunny, but you asked for three. I think I gave you four.
There's this culture in the Valley about moving fast and breaking things. So what's your take on that when it comes to AI and AI governance?
Yeah, so I'm all about moving fast. I'm not so sure about the breaking things part, because one thing I've learned, particularly, and by the way, not only in the with respect to the privacy work that I've done, but I've also helped companies prepare for IPOs and acquisitions. And one thing I've learned, Sunny, is that you either invest the time now or you invest it later. But no matter what happens, you're going to invest that time. And when you invest that time later, it's going to cost you more. It's going to be harder to do. It's going to really slow you down. So I don't think this is slowing people down. I actually think investing properly in the right systems and tools and guardrails, like actually building AI governance today, is a much more effective way of building sustainably for the long run.
And then, but by the way, what an awesome interview. Thank you so much for your time. But help me maybe land the plane with this last one. What's, if you look out 5 to 10 years out, what's your optimistic vision for AI? Because there is a lot of gloom and doom out there, not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we get it right. The optimistic AI vision is that more people can get access to education, that it improves our healthcare, that we are gaining productivity to spend time on the things that matter most, and are much more strategic about our decisions. That's exactly what we talk about, and we offer to our clients at Reliance AI, is that instead of focusing on administrative, it allows our customers to actually focus on strategic. That we continue to build human-centered AI, Sunny. I think if we start to lose sight of human-centered AI, that we're building for humans instead of just displacing them, I think that can actually offer a lot of opportunities to do better. One of the things that I think is that AI has really started to highlight, I know bias is like it's like a dirty word these days, but it's highlighted our own biases. And it's like, you can't blame the model because the model is training on data that humans created. And by the way, bias means a lot of different things that I don't know if we'll have time to get into today. But I think that when we can understand and identify that those biases exist is really when we can bring that out in the open and solve for it. And I really hope that it's going to just help to up-level humanity overall, that it's going to help to make us smarter, improve our decision making, and make it more consistent. Because technically, if we are highlighting things like bias in decision making, that we can just have 0 and 1 really objective decision making and use AI for good. But yeah, and I really hope, Sunny, the healthcare use cases are fascinating. I think some of the most exciting ones, and I think that the climate use cases are also a huge opportunity for us to do some real good in the world.
Awesome, Leila. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to do a part 2. I only got through maybe half of my questions. So I really, really enjoyed this time with you, Leila. Thank you for those who checked in and who watch in the future. Yeah, appreciate your time. And until next time.
Thanks, Sunny. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Leila.